In February 2026, Google had the smartest model on Earth. Gemini 3.1 Pro sat at the top of the Artificial Analysis Intelligence Index, and it got there trained mostly on Google's own TPU chips, not NVIDIA's. That was the proof the whole infrastructure bet was working. 5 months later, Google's highest scoring model in that same index isn't a Pro model at all. It's Gemini 3.6 Flash. And it's in 11th place. 11th. The lab that was setting the pace of the industry can't crack the top 10 of it. And here's the part that makes this genuinely strange. If you look at Google, they are having a great year. The users are up, the money is up, the stock is up. So this is not a story about a company falling apart. It's a story about a company that stopped shipping and barely felt it, which is a much weirder problem. So here's the plan. First, what actually broke, and it's a specific, unglamorous, technical failure, not a vibe. Then who walked out the door while it was breaking. And then the honest catch, because the obvious version of this story is wrong, and I'd rather correct it than repeat it. Start with the shape of Google, because it explains everything after this. Google owns the road. Search, Chrome, Android, and now Siri. 2 billion people a month drive on Google's pavement without ever choosing to. Anthropic and OpenAI don't own any road. They build cars. And when all you sell is the car, you have to win every single review or you don't sell anything. In February, Google owned the road and had the fastest car. Then it stopped shipping cars. Here's the timeline, and it's rough. On May 19th, at its own developer conference, Sundar Pichai announced 2 models, Gemini 3.5 Flash, which shipped that day, and Gemini 3.5 Pro, the flagship, the one built to extend the February lead. Pichai said it was already running internally. His words from the stage, "Give us until next month to get it to you." Next month came. Nothing. Google pushed general availability to July, citing quality refinements. A widely reported internal target of July 17th came and went. Nothing. 3 consecutive windows missed. And the reported reason is the interesting part, because it isn't hand-waving. DeepMind missed its own internal quality bar, specifically on hallucination rates and real-world reliability. And the team reportedly scrapped and rebuilt the model's base architecture after finding structural failures in recursive tool calling and SVG generation. Sit with that. They tore down the foundation of a flagship model over drawing vector graphics and calling tools inside its own loops. That's not a rounding error you patch. That's the agent stuff, the thing every lab is racing on right now. If your model can't reliably call a tool that calls another tool, it can't be an agent. And in 2026, that's most of the job. So on July 21st, Google shipped 3 models. Gemini 3.6 Flash, 3.5 Flash Lite, and a specialized one called Flash Cyber for finding and fixing security vulnerabilities. All Flash tier. All efficiency models. Not one flagship in the group. DeepMind's product lead, Logan Kilpatrick, said 3.5 Pro was still in testing with partners and they hope to land it soon. He also mentioned Google had begun its most ambitious pre-training run yet for Gemini 4. That's the tell. Google isn't just late on one model. It may already be looking past it. And the field did not wait. In the same stretch, Anthropic shipped 4 models in under 2 months. Mythos 5, Fable 5, Sonnet 5, and Opus 5 with Opus 5 taking the top spot at 61. OpenAI shipped GPT 5.6 Sol at 59, plus 2 more variants, Terra and Luna. 3 from one generation while Google shipped 0 flagships. But here's the number that actually stings. Moonshot's Kimi K3 scored 57, exactly matching Gemini 3.1 Pro's February peak. And OpenWeight's Chinese model caught up to Google's high watermark, because Google's high watermark never moved. Google is now the only major frontier lab without a current generation flagship publicly available. Then, in the last week of June, 4 senior researchers left in rapid succession. Noam Shazir, at Google since 2000, rehired in 2024 specifically to work on Gemini after the Character.ai acquisition left for OpenAI. Days later, DeepMind director John Jumper, who shared the 2024 Nobel Prize in Chemistry for AlphaFold, left for Anthropic. Same week, Jonas Adler from the AI coding effort and Alexander Pritzel from pre-training, both to Anthropic. Bloomberg described it as risking Google's position in AI outright. Now, the honest part, and let me be straight with you, because half the internet won't. The story everybody is telling is that the people left, so the model slipped. 4 senior departures, 1 delayed flagship, same window. It's a clean narrative, and it's satisfying. It's also not supported. The reported cause of the delay is technical DeepMind's own quality assessment and a decision to rebuild rather than ship something unreliable. Those are two true things happening in the same month, and treating that as cause and effect is exactly the kind of reasoning that feels like analysis and isn't. If anything, the timing runs the other way. Senior people are more likely to leave a project that's already grinding. What the departures genuinely do show is narrower and worse. A talent market flowing in one direction, toward Anthropic and OpenAI, and Google losing people who'd been there 26 years. And let me be fair to Google, because the case is strong. The Gemini app passed 900 million monthly active users by May, up from 400 million a year earlier. Google's share of global AI web traffic tripled in 12 months to roughly 27%, clear second behind ChatGPT. AI overviews reached more than 2 billion monthly users, and AI mode more than 1 billion numbers. No chatbot-only competitor can touch. Apple picked a custom 1.2 trillion parameter Gemini model to power the rebuilt Siri, a deal worth around $1 billion a year, shipping with iOS 27. And Gemini 3.6 Flash runs at $1.50 per million input tokens and $7.50 per million output, the cheapest frontier class pricing of the bunch, which is the TPU advantage still quietly paying out. That's not a company in trouble. That's a company that owns the road. But distribution answers a different question than the one we asked. It explains why Google isn't losing users. It doesn't explain the benchmark gap, and it might quietly explain how the gap opened in the first place. When your product reaches hundreds of millions of people the second they unlock their phone, you have far less urgency to hit a ship date than a company whose entire business is the model. Owning the road makes you patient. Patience is expensive right now, because developers aren't drivers. They're the ones laying pipe into their own products, and they pick the fastest engine available today, not the one promised next month. Every month, 3.5 Pro sits in preview is a month teams wire their stacks to Claude, GPT, or Kimi. And once that pipe is laid, it stays laid. Switching costs, compound, and whoever's favor got there first. So watch one signal over the next few weeks. Whether Gemini 3.5 Pro actually ships, or whether Google quietly rolls past it straight into Gemini 4. If it ships, February to July was a delay, ugly but survivable. If Google skips it, that's the company telling you 3.5 Pro was never going to close the gap on its own. Google's problem was never relevance. The distribution numbers settle that. The problem is pace. And in a market where 4 rival labs shipped flagships in the time it took Google to ship none, pace is the one thing owning the road can't buy back for you. If this gave you a cleaner read on what's actually happening at Google, subscribe. That's the only thing I'm selling here. I'll see you in the next one.